afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Victoria County webinar series. Your host today, Annette McKenzie, and on behalf of Victoria County Capsize Association, would like to welcome you and glad you could join us for the second webinar in our 2013 series. Today's webinar on travel and tourism trends in 2013 will cover a review of the 2012 tourism season, a look at travel and tourism trends for 2013, and a tourism outlook for 2013. I'd like to present Mr. Tom Wilson. He is the Director of Recreation and Tourism for the Municipality of Victoria County. As an experienced blogger and tourism technology resource person, he has presented at many national, provincial, and regional conferences on broadband, e-marketing, social media, and tourism technology. He is currently the chair of Cape Breton's online marketing conference, which is going to be held on March 7th in Badek, and he is the coordinator of the Victoria County Tourism Webinar Series. He was also a winner of the Tourism Atlantic Technology Award in 2007. Mr. Wilson is also a graduate of Dalhousie University with graduate work at University of North Texas, and he has a certificate in leading innovation from St. Mary's University, a certificate of tourism destination management from George Washington University, as well as a certificate in community economic development from Nova Scotia Community College. So I'd now like to welcome Tom, and I'm going to pass it all off to you for your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us on sort of a very early start to winter in terms of this morning. We were driving in 6 inches of snow with the plows coming late and school canceled. So thank you for taking the time to join us today at your noon hour. As mentioned earlier, today's presentation is going to talk about the travel and tourism trends for 2013. We're first going to look at a recap of last year's tourism season so that we understand where we are currently at and where it's hopefully going to be in this coming year. And then we're going to talk about some of the trends in travel and tourism, and then an outlook of the 2013 season, what the experts are saying. The first slide talks about the market that Stats Canada provides on a quarterly basis. They provide updates on international travel. And so you can see that in 2002, we did relatively well for U.S. travel. It was up by 2.3%. Our markets that we tend to go after in terms of international, UK, France, Germany, and Australia, was down minus 1.3%. But then we have these new markets coming that you'll find a lot more information in the next couple of slides to talk about this, but the emerging and transition markets, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Brazil, China, and India, and they were up 7.7% this past year. The Canadian Tourism Commission overseas key markets were up 1.9%, other overseas countries down 1.2%, so the total countries we were up by 1.8% in overnight trips to Canada. So this is the international travelers, so not too bad compared to some other places. So now we're going to focus in on Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, and Victoria County, where I work. Nova Scotia year-to-date had a 1% increase in occupancy rate and a -2 in room nights sold. And by the way, the year-to-date is actually up to October. The November stats have just been released, so there might be a little bit of change, but not much. In Cape Breton, we were down -1 in occupancy rate and 0% increase in room nights sold. In Victoria County, we were up 1.3% in occupancy rate and 3% in room nights sold. So it's always important to sort of compare how you fare with other places in Nova Scotia. So you see Victoria County did quite well against in terms of Cape Breton as overall and Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia Tourism also, through their research division, also provides important stats that they call key Nova Scotia tourism indicators. And so we're going to take a quick look at that. In 2012, total visitors were up 1%, but air traffic was down 4%. Now, it wasn't all that long ago when airline traffic was the leading indicator for how you were going to do in terms of visitor traffic. But in the past couple of years, the auto traffic has actually been helping us while the air traffic is going down. Provincial museums, they were up 2% this year. National parks and historic sites, you'll see that they didn't have a very good year in 2012. The Bell Museum was down 2%, Louisburg was down 5%, Citadel Hill was down -25%, Keji down 4%, and we had no stats from Cape Breton-Nez National Park. They're introducing a new point-of-sale system that we won't be able to get stats from them until the following year when they can, because this year was their base. Golf was up 8%, and I think a lot of reasons behind that was we had an incredible August for weather-wise, and so golf generally tends to be up when the weather is good during the summer and fall, of course. Nova Scotia Visitor Information Centers, and these are the provincial ones, they were up 1%. Check-in reservations were down 19%, and this is a trend that we're seeing. People are calling the tourism operator directly and bypassing the check-ins number. And literature requests were up 7%, which is not too bad compared to what the trend is, and that less people are using print media. Website visits were up 13% for the Nova Scotia tourism website. That's novascotia.com. And the mobile website, which was launched in July of 2012, it had 68,000 visits. And we're going to talk more in the presentation about the importance of the mobile devices, and that includes the tablets and the smartphones. I worked with Nova Scotia Tourism Research Division to find out how the Doers and Dreamers guides, how many people are actually ordering them now. And so I have the following stats for you. In 2012, there were 73,142 requests for the Doers and Dreamers guide, and 37,000 were from Canada and almost 31,000 for U.S. visitors. And how they handled the request, almost 52,000 requested the Doers and Dreamers through the website, novascotia.com, and only 21,000 used the toll-free number. So you're starting to see in a lot of places now the decline of the toll-free number, and more people just accessing the information through the website. Total guides printed in 2012 were 275,000, and 56,000 were unused. Now, not too long ago, and I think maybe 5 years ago, Nova Scotia Tourism was printing almost 750,000 guides. So you really are seeing the visitor tends to look at print information and tends to use more of the online information. So the guides, I believe this year, I think it's going to be 250,000 guides are going to be printed. So that's a big change over the last 5 to 6 years. The visitor information centers across Nova Scotia, and that's the local ones here in Cape Breton as well as the ones in Nova Scotia. 82,000 were distributed at the VICs, and 63,000 were distributed in trade shows and events. I believe the new Doers and Dreamers guide is not out yet, but should be out, I think, in March. I wanted to include this stat because in Victoria County, I use the ferry stats and the counter stats that the highways look after as indicators of how much traffic we're getting each year on the Cabot Trail and in other places. So in Englishtown, in 2012, they had 239,400 cars travel the ferry, and this was just a small decrease of 0.4%. So that wasn't bad overall. We're pretty well on par with last year. October stats were plus 8%, and of course that's the Celtic Colors Festival, and of course the changing of the leaves, the colors of the leaves there. Little Narrows had a phenomenal year. They were up 9%, 128,367. And Little Narrows is on the Bedore Lake Scenic Drive and Route 223, and that's of course the route that we take to get to Nova Scotia Island Village, to the Washabuck along the shores of Washabuck Festival, and of course the Little Narrows Community Center as well. Counter stats at Skirdu and Middle River indicate around the Cabot Trail that we're getting roughly 230,000 to 240,000 on average the past 5 years. So we're keeping pretty good trends on the Cabot Trail and of course the Englishtown. In the heyday when the traffic was up pretty good, Englishtown would normally get 250,000 visitors. So we're not too bad in the past couple of years here. I'm not sure if many people out there know who Patrick Sullivan is, but Patrick Sullivan is the CEO for the Nova Scotia Tourism Agency. That's the agency that was created in September of 2012 to manage the tourism industry and the marketing, research, and product development to help Nova Scotia grow in tourism revenues and bring in more visitors. So here's a couple of stats that Patrick talked about in his presentation at the annual TIANS conference, which was held in November of this past year. 65% of leisure travelers begin researching online. I suspect that's even higher. I know at one time it was 80-some% or more. Now here's the new stat that we're really watching. 85% of the travelers use their smartphone while they're traveling, and 70% update their Facebook status while on vacation. I'm not sure if I'd want to do that, update Facebook status, because that tells people that you're not home. Anyway, and 50% use the internet while watching TV, so it seems like there's a lot of people that multitask while they're watching. And 65% watch videos while choosing a destination area. Another trend that Patrick didn't talk about is the importance of social media and how that's becoming an influence on travelers when they're making their decision on where to go, where to stay, and what activities and adventures and experiences they want to do. TripAdvisor has made a massive difference on accommodations and the importance of the reviews by people staying at the various accommodation places. I generally use that quite a bit when I'm going overseas and when I'm staying in big cities if I'm not familiar with the hotel, and I'm sure that many of you out there will do the same as well. Social media, it's not all that, it's pretty common for a lot of people to say, hey, I'm going to London for a trip, and is there anybody out there that recommends places to stay near Russell Square? And you'd be surprised how many people will actually reply to that and tell you where they're staying and send you links to reviews. So it's really important that we understand that social media does play a role in influence people on where they stay, what they do, and of course their adventures and activities. Lonely Planet is, a lot of people are familiar with their travel guides. If you've ever gone to any of these new different countries, you usually buy a travel guide and you learn more about places to stay, restaurants, and activities. Lonely Planet website, which is the first time that I've been on it, I think, in probably a month or two, I've noticed at the bottom of their website where a lot of people, operators will put, follow me on Facebook or Twitter or here's our blog. A new trend that's coming out with a lot of websites is the mobile. If you can see the mobile icon, and more people are including that on their website. Some of the tourism operators will include that icon, and that takes them right to their mobile website. And we'll chat a little more about that. But I just wanted to throw that slide in to say that we're going to hear more and more about mobile devices and how it's being used in the travel industry. In my research, I looked at a number of studies on trends, and here's one that came up. It's called the ITB, and this company or this organization is based out of Berlin in Germany. Every year they host the world's top travel trade show, and during this show they invite panelists in to talk about some of the new trends and everything, and so this is what they have said. Consumers will seek new and more authentic experiences. They predict more people will turn their backs on artificial travel worlds and instead seek authentic holiday destinations and experience with more interaction with local communities. A lot of the visitors that come to Cape Breton and to Nova Scotia, the reason why they go to a lot of the local festivals is it gives them an opportunity to meet the locals, to talk about what they enjoy in the communities and ask for any tips or tools of where they think you want to go and different places, different types of seafood and stuff like that. So more and more it's getting important to interact with your local community, and the local communities, of course, have to interact with the visitors. I just threw this slide in. This is just a picture of me over in England. I was hiking the Adrian's Wall, which is 85 miles long. It takes about 8 to 9 days to do, and you stay in various communities along the way. And you always have a great chance during this walk, because you're walking somewhere between 12 and 14 miles a day. You have a chance to, of course, see the great scenery, stop and meet other hikers. One thing about UK, they generally don't use the word hikers, they call them walkers over there. And so I had this opportunity where our luggage was transferred each night, and we stayed at a different accommodation. We went out to supper. A lot of places we'd stop at pubs and stuff just to get a chance to meet the locals. And I can see why the ITB experts are saying that it really is getting important to interact with the local communities and vice versa, because that's always been the highlight of our trip, is meeting locals and learning more about the local area. So I just wanted to throw that slide in. A couple more studies and reports that we looked at. ABTA, which is a UK travel agency that a lot of groups use over there. In their research, they looked at a number of trends. One was tailor-made holidays. They're also looking, another trend was in search of adventure. When people are going to spend a lot of money, they want to make sure that they get a quality experience and something different and unique that they wouldn't get. Also, value is very important. I would think in the top 3 choices when people make decisions on where they want to go, the value of what they're paying for, what the price, is it a good price? They're always looking at that. Packages versus DIY. Packages, we're finding that more and more people, especially when they're going in international travel, are buying packages. DIY means basically that some people, when they book their trips, will book their plane tickets, they'll book their accommodations, and they'll book their adventures separately. So that's, and there's some advantages to that, and there's some disadvantages to that, of course. Luxury is another trend, the return of the big holiday. Train, coach, and cruise. Cruise ships have still growing, although some of the actions with some of the cruise ships have certainly made people wonder about the safety of those boats. And then, of course, there's age group trends, and some of the trends are basically taken that more and more people are taking shorter holidays, like 3 to 4 day trips, and excursions around their local areas. And space tourism is starting to get big now, and not so much in North America, but it probably will happen soon. Orbit's travel trend predictions for 2013. Mobile booking, preferred transaction tool for travelers, and uptick in international travel. We're finding that more and more people want to go internationally, and of course the prices are really good right now. And the social rewards, more and more tour companies are offering different rewards for booking early and participating in different contests and things like that. Here's just a presentation that I found off SlideShare that indicates 13 trends that will define travel in 2013. Everybody wants a Chinese tourist in 2013. Ever since the world has allowed, or China's allowed the world to come in and advertise for travel, it seems to be a market that everybody's going after. Ancillary fees are the new normal. You're starting to see at airports and airlines charging new fees, for example, booking your meals before you go on your flight, things like that. Last minute mobile hotel booking. A lot of people are starting to use their smartphones or their tablets for booking last minute. Rise of price transparency, travelers hungry for food tourism, airports as destinations, destination branding through movies. A good example of this was New Zealand using The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, Skyfall, the James Bond movie, and of course talking about Visit Britain, Lincoln. There's a whack of movies out there. Digital maps are one of the travel's key battlegrounds. We're finding more and more companies are out there. They're going after Microsoft and Google. Personal in-flight entertainment through mobile devices, and affordable design hotels, and blurring of business and leisure travel. Okay, this is just from a study recently that was featured on emarketing.com. If you haven't joined, you can get a free newsletter. It comes out on a daily basis, and it comes up with some of the latest studies. Now, a lot of them are based out of the U.S., but occasionally they'll bring in the Canadian stuff as well as world. So the number one digital priority for 2013 is content marketing. And you're going to have to learn a little more about that. It's generally used, of course, on your websites and on your blogs. Conversion rate optimization is number 2. Social media engagement is 3. Targeting and personalization is 4. Content optimization is 5. Mobile optimization is 6. Brand marketing versus follower marketing. And 2 of the ones that normally were a lot higher are at the bottom of the list, and that's video marketing and social media analytics. And the source is indicated below there. So some new changes where social media was always at the top. Now the new buzzword is content marketing. Mobile devices, and just to let you know more about that, that refers to smartphones and your tablets, like iPads and Samsung and Acer and all the other ones out there. there's more people going on the internet with mobile devices than there are with the PCs and laptops. This just happened this past year. There's 1 billion users worldwide in 2012 with mobile devices, and more focused on smartphones, and 1.3 in 2013 they're predicting. 101 billion minutes a month people spend on apps, and U.S. will spend an additional 23 billion minutes a month going on the web. I want to throw this next one out to you just so that you understand. Hike the Hounds is a hiking festival that takes place in September for about 10 days. And a trend that we saw on our Google Analytics, we saw more and more people going on our website through mobile devices. And in fact, this past year we saw 20% of the people that came to our website were mobile devices. And Google Analytics will tell you this information on your website as well, so that you can understand more about that. So we're now looking at a mobile website. Now, the difference with the mobile website, it's a smaller. Just remember, it's a smaller screen when you have to put it on a smartphone. So there's probably not as much information as what you have on your website, and it's broken down into categories. So basically, you're not clicking as much as maybe as you were on your website. The big question that tourism operators and DMOs and regional tourism groups are starting to really grapple is, okay, do I go with a mobile website or do I go with a mobile application? That's a really tough question to answer. I've done a lot of research on it, and I hear good points on one and I hear good points on the other, and nobody's coming out clear-cut as a winner. I do know that in terms of price, mobile websites tend to be a little cheaper than a mobile app, but when it comes down to it, it's all based on what's going to generate your most sales. So that's really a question that you have to do your research and look at. I hopefully Hike the Highlands this year I can find out more about how the mobile website goes. Destination Cape Breton has a mobile website. You'll notice at the end of a mobile website, sometimes they'll have an M in front of the domain name, or they'll have, instead of .com, they'll have .mobi. So that's a difference in terms of the domain names. Tourism Outlook for 2013, and this is from the Conference Board of Canada. It's from their Travel Markets Outlook, National Focus, Autumn of 2012. They're predicting that domestic overnight visits in Canada will expand by 2%. However, the U.S. economy recovery and Canadian household debt, of course, and higher gas prices provide uncertainties in the market. The Conference Board doesn't expect a very big increase. It's 0.07% for overnight visits to Canada from the U.S. Overseas visits seem to be where the biggest increase, and remember those markets, China, India, and Mexico, 2.5 increase. The Conference Board of Canada also looked at Nova Scotia and what the forecast would be for them in 2013. And they're saying just a very small increase of 1% in overnight visits. Total expenditures an increase of 3.6 and a travel price index of 2.20. And again, you see that big increase. It's in overseas travel, 2.1, domestics 0.9, business 1.3, pleasure 0.9, and U.S. plus 0.6. The United Nations, the World Travel Organization, reported on international travel arrivals. They saw an increase of 4% in 2012, and they expect almost the same in 2013, between 3 and 4%. I was fortunate to be able to attend the Tie-Ins Conference, which is the Nova Scotia Tourism Summit, in November of the last week in November in Halifax. And Patrick Sullivan presented his report on where Nova Scotia Tourism Agency is going, what they're looking at in terms of marketing and product development. So I wanted to share with you some of his comments that he made. 81% of the visitors that come to Nova Scotia right now are regular visitors, and only 19% are first-time visitors. So he wants Nova Scotia Tourism Agency to focus more on first-time visitors. Why? Because they spend 42% more than repeat visitors and twice as much on accommodations. They tend to spend more on iconic attractions and on culture events. They stay longer again, and the markets they're going after is the outdoor enthusiast, who stays longer, spends more, and more likely to be first time. But these outdoor enthusiasts are also interested in culture and culinary experiences after they do their outdoor activity for the day. So that's the market Nova Scotia Tourism is going after in 2013. And the markets they're looking at in Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and Maritimes, no big surprises there. In U.S., Mid-Atlantic and New England, again, no big surprises. In Europe, UK, and Germany. But there are a couple of changes they're making. In their national campaign, which is to be done across Canada, they're going to launch earlier in March. They're going to increase their media spend by 12%. They're reinvesting in Quebec. They're reducing spending in Nova Scotia. And, for example, the newspaper ads they put in the Chronicle Herald and some of the newspapers. And they're also going to increase investment in Ontario. One of the comments that he made at the Tie-Ins conference was, I want Nova Scotia to be the leading digital marketer among the provincial marketing organizations in Canada within 5 years. Patrick Sullivan, a CEO for Nova Scotia Tourism Agency, has agreed to be one of the keynote speakers at the Cape Breton Online Marketing Conference on March the 7th, and he's also agreed to talk about that comment that he made and how the agency is going to accomplish that goal within 5 years. Tourism outlook for 2013. In Cape Breton, we are blessed with an incredible array of festivals. And this year we're celebrating a lot of anniversaries. So this year we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Bedore Yacht Club Regatta Week, the 75th anniversary of the Gaelic College of Celtic Arts and Crafts, the 40th anniversary of the Cape Breton, the Festival of Cape Breton Billing, the 10th anniversary of the Hike the Highlands Festival, and Louisburg 300. And I'm sure there's many more out there that I include in that list. We're very blessed that the volunteers, the business people, the local sponsors, all come together to provide a unique product to visitors and local residents. We're going to probably see another increase in product development. Activities, experiences, and adventures will all be key components of tourism for 2013. The marketing levy, this will be the third year in 2013. A new organization, Events Cape Breton, will be hiring an executive director of major events, which we hope will again bring in new visitors and again encourage them to stay longer and spend more money. Destination Cape Breton, in partnership with Louisburg 300, will be hiring a project manager and also an events coordinator for the Louisburg 300 Festival. Question marks for 2013. We won't know probably until the tourism season's over the impact of Parks Canada cuts, the retirements, and the price increases in 2013. As you're aware, they were cut 25% of the budget, and again, we don't know the impact of what that'll be to the tourism industry, but that would definitely be a question mark for Cape Breton. Excuse me. I'm not sure if you know, but there's been a review of provincial parks and protected areas. They're looking at possibly user fees for 2013, possibly cuts to provincial park systems, closures, and maybe community organizations taking over some of the provincial parks. The Nova Scotia Tourism Agency, the impact that will take place in this year. This will be its first full year up and running, and we hope that it will be a successful one. But again, we're not sure how that's all going to fare out. We're constantly hearing labor shortages for the tourism industry in 2013, and we haven't really heard the impact of what the EI changes will be to the tourism industry. We've had question marks on the U.S. economy and its recovery, as well as the Canadian economy, and talks about the household debt and will there be a disposable income to allow people to enjoy vacations in 2013. So there's a number of question marks out there. So this concludes my presentation for today. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. And I'm going to shortly pass this over to Annette for any questions out there. I mentioned earlier about the Cape Breton Online Marketing and Social Media Conference that takes place on Thursday, March the 7th at the Inverry Resort in Quebec. And the websites there will talk about the program and the speakers. And we have a pretty exciting program. We're probably the first conference in history that actually has 4 keynote speakers in one day. And we're pretty pleased with that, and we also have a great, we have 7 other conference sessions that are going to provide some really great information to help the tourism industry and businesses plan the upcoming season. So thank you, and I'll pass this over to Annette.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom. And right now, there is no questions in the Q&A panel. So, again, thank you, Tom, for your very informative session today. And again, as Tom has mentioned, a recording of this session will be available, and the link will be sent to you as soon as it's generated. And we will also be transforming this into a video, so we'll send that link along. And when we leave this session, there will be a survey pop up in a new window. And if you could just take a few minutes to answer the questions to assist us with planning for the future.